Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Dave Finlayson. I have performed a coup, and much like people, hopefully, in Trump's government over the next few years, we've taken over this podcast while Anthony is away. I have Anthony's favorite number two commentator, Derek Simon, here joining me tonight. Hello, Derek.
Hi, Dave. Nice to see you.
Hey, it's great to be here. So we are going to quickly look at the couple Wanderers games from the last couple weeks due to scheduling conflicts and some travel for Anthony. We weren't able to get through the Calgary one last week, but we do have some things that we want to talk about from that match. So, first question, Derek, how are you feeling after the last two games if we look at them together?
I mean, I still don't feel like obviously the last game was a positive result. I feel like maybe we deserved a bit better given who we were playing against and so forth. So I think it's good that we're kind of going into a long break with a win under our belts. I would like to have seen something a little more convincing against a team that's bottom of the table and that was missing multiple starters. So we were in a rough patch of form for about three matches there. I don't think we've completely turned the corner, but at least we've started to kind of turn the page a little bit, I guess.
And I know I've noticed it, but have you noticed a dramatic change in playing style tactics in the last couple games?
Yeah, I mean the starting lineup has changed a bit, and we've certainly seen some tactical tweaks where we're seeing kind of two strikers starting in Telfer and Tiago. So almost more of a 4-4-2, which then morphs into different formations in possession. So certainly a change from what we saw before, where it was kind of we're in possession. We kind of had two 10 sitting behind a nine. So it was kind of Probo and Rea typically sitting behind either Telfer or Tiago. And now we have two more out and out strikers. I'll be honest and say I'm not entirely convinced that is our best formation. I kind of liked the creativity that Rea brings to the game. I think, Telfer and Tiago are certainly different types of strikers, but maybe not different enough that they complement each other in the right way, I don't feel. And so, I think we saw last game once Rea came on, it did change sort of the temper of the game and the way we were attacking. And I think I think I'm not entirely convinced the new formation, but I'd be interested. You said you've definitely seen a difference. So I'd love to hear what you've seen.
Yeah, and I think so. This is the third game in a trot where we've kind of rolled those that formation
Yeah,
out,
yeah,
and so they've had some time to get used to each other. The first game, I thought Telfer and Tiago were on totally different pages.
yeah,
The second game started to see them get a little bit closer together,
yeah,
and then this game, I'll say it was kind of in between the two. So occasionally they would have some good interplay, but generally I find the Tiago his chances are coming from long balls,
yeah,
coming from the back, generally skipping the midfield, obviously, with the Isaiah pass the other week being a little bit different, but generally from a deeper position. So he's not going on to very quick through balls on the offensive side of half.
yeah.
We are looking to play long. And the one thing that I did like about that, I felt it did open them up a little bit for us to play more of our typical short pass, but we just didn't do it. So that was interesting to me. And then also that we had three or four that I would say Tiago was very close to capturing
Yeah.
on the through balls, and Callum Irving was just as always against us. On fire and off his line in a hurry, and his clearances were all going out of bounds, but like they were so close. So I didn't think that tactic was that far off. I just don't think those guys play well together. And then the thing is, when you take one of them off when you bringing in Rea or any of the other players, we have to totally change how we play
Yeah.
because then we don't have any of that long option and they can squeeze in on us again.
I think the game against Cavs, if I remember correctly, they ended up taking both off around the same time, and then we really didn't have, which is the other problem. We really didn't have an out and out striker on the bench. So I think we shifted Bahambula up, and I'm not sure his skill set is totally suited to leading the line. So it kind of I liked having one or the other and having one sub in or out for the other, and that the tactics maybe adjust a little bit based on their style of play as striker. But notwithstanding kind of the comments you've made, I think about improvements you've seen over the last three games, I'm still not entirely convinced that this tactics are best way forward. So
Well, and if I think about the games we played well in before these, I'll just say this block of three where we've been playing some version of a 4-4-2.
yeah,
Rhea and Probo have been scary to the opposition,
yeah,
right? Maybe not complete yard dogs as far as tackling. I think they're doing enough,
yeah.
but they're certainly getting capable support behind them to make up for any of the shortfalls. But then the one thing I did notice is we had a 1-0 lead. We bring in, I'll say, the short brigade, because the three guys that we had in, there was not much height or size. So we're trying to kill off a game, and you could see numerous times we literally just played the ball to the corner with no one running. And it's
Yeah.
just like we were trying to literally ice the puck, which I thought was kind of funny. And I thought with that lineup in, we might revert back to like, okay, let's knock the ball around a bit. Let's keep possession. Let's get it down in their end. And
Yeah.
it's like we had no one to hold that ball up.
Yeah.
So I think with some tweaks, and it does bring another kind of bigger question for me, is like, who is our third striker, or who does Patrice think is our third striker? Like, are we just not going to have one? We're going to stick with two, and whoever's coming in that 10 spot or two in the 10 spot.
Well, we haven't seen, I mean, the only one the only other one that's in the roster that is an out and out striker, I think, is Tavio Ciccarelli, and we haven't seen him. We saw him off the bench once, maybe,
Hmm.
if at
Yeah,
all,
just maybe,
a
because
brief
we saw
camp.
Jovan Mann for kind of
We
played
did see Jovan Man,
for
yeah,
him a
sorry.
few minutes, but
Yeah.
that was just a few minutes at the end of a losing battle versus in the Canadian Championship.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's the problem. If you're going to go with two strikers, you've got to have sort of a clearly identified third option, which I'm not sure we do, given the skill sets of our other players, unless we're willing to pull in a Jovan Man or a Tavio Ciccarelli, which so far
Yeah.
we haven't really done. So.
So, is there some highlights you have from the last two games as far as individual performances that you've been very excited about?
Um, I mean, Adam Pearlman's been excellent, and from the start of the season, and I even heard a few supporters around me the other day saying that you could argue quietly that maybe he has been our best player. Certainly, TFC is going to be very happy with how this loan has gone. He is
Mm,
starting every game. He's been in the team of the week three, four times now. He seems to have really adapted nicely to that. Right side of a back three type of role. And that might be a good role for him going forward because I don't know that he has the height to be an out and out center back when you're playing a center back pair, but certainly as part of a back three or even a right back. And what we're seeing more of from him now is, I think early in the season the tendency was for Timoteo to be the one that was getting forward, and Perlman kind of staying back, and now we're seeing him getting forward a bit more as well, which adds a different dimension to our attack. Like that was a problem, that was a clearly identified problem last year, where our attack often flowed down just the one side, just down primarily down the right. And it seems like this year we're a bit more willing to vary it in terms of, there's times where he gets forward and Wes is the one that kind of stays back, or somebody, or one of the midfielders tucks in to be part of the back three. So we're moving the pieces around a bit more in terms of how we create that back three, which is nice, and we're seeing different dimensions of his game. So I think for me, he's kind of been a standout, not just over the last couple of games, but over the season as a whole. Yourself?
yeah, yeah, I'm totally on the same page with you actually there. I mean, I think I knew what Isaiah Johnston was going to be when
Yeah,
he came in. I didn't realize how good he was on the ball.
yeah,
Like he really can do anything, and I'd rather have him shooting from the top of the box than Lorenzo because Lorenzo is my favorite player. I do have a lot of passion for him, not as much as Gary, but I have a lot of passion for him. And that guy, broadside of a barn with any shot, like it's crazy. I think maybe he might have two shots on target this year.
yeah.
And I think I remember them, but it's every time that ball comes out, it's just like, that's going up in 108 or whatever.
I mean, the reality is in a league like this, when you have a player of Lorenzo's caliber, there's always going to be some flaw in their game that's the reason they're not playing
Yeah,
in League Two in France,
that's
right?
right.
Or League One in
That's it.
France. And
Yeah.
I think for him, maybe that's kind of one of the weaknesses. Obviously TMG's been superb, but I think that
Mm.
goes without saying, and he's getting his laurels too. So
Yeah, and I think Yesley the last couple of games, I just heard as I was I had some different seats for this game. I was just walking around talking to different people and getting some different opinions, and I'll say it was definitely split on Yesley. Like I think everyone thinks he could be a fantastic keeper. People are just questioning some of his decision making with regards to when he's coming out, some of his tackles in the box, like those kind of things. But as a shot stopper, and I think in the game against Calgary, we really saw it like just commanding his box
yeah,
on corner kicks. For me, that was very strong. So I was really happy to see that. And Probo, I think, has really picked up his game this year. Like that guy, you notice it when he comes off. Like there's no one really pinging balls all across the field, even if they don't come off. So really, really happy with how he's playing so far this year. One of the things that I did want to talk about in the Vancouver game, and I will definitely have some things to say if you don't about it, but did you notice any effect of the referee on this match?
I'm gonna leave that one to you, Dave, because you actually have experience refereeing, so you're probably in a
Objection, Your
better
Honor.
position to
Leading question.
judge. Yeah,
Okay, listen. So this is I was losing it from 7 minutes in. So Bahambula breaks through down the
yeah,
right side, beats the left back, and is one on one with one of the center backs. Gets hacked down, about 25 yards out. So like it should be just a straight, easy garden variety yellow card. So no yellow. He then gets fouled by the same player again, and then finally on the third time gets a yellow card. Meanwhile, TMG tackles one of their players at half, his first tackle of the game,
yeah.
immediate yellow card. And I was just like, whoa, like, so if that was an immediate yellow card, because again, as a referee, you're looking for direction towards the net. You're looking for how many defenders are around him. Could this guy get a goal scoring opportunity here, which might determine yellow versus red versus nothing? And he just missed it. And I just felt like he called a bunch of really weird fouls. Lorenzo was waiting for a ball to come down and was literally shoved out of the way in the back and then not called. And then it went the other way. So this is in when we were attacking. So it would again given us a free kick around 25 yards out. And then one of our players does the exact same thing to them, but in their like just outside their box, and they get the call. And it was like it just felt like that. It was like all game. I really have some questions about a couple of the penalty shouts. I didn't think Thiago's was a penalty at all.
Yeah.
I heard Gary also say that. The one I actually had the most problem with was the Bamboozler, as our friend up on the mic calls him. When the defender hooked his arm in the second half and then like was hacking away at the back of his legs. And on the
Yeah.
replay, it doesn't look as blatant as what I thought, but I'm like, there was more than enough, right? The speed was enough and there was definitely a shout for a penalty, and it was just so inconsistent all game long. Felt like the players didn't know what he was going to call, like period, end of story. So for me, that was I actually felt like he affected the game because if that first player got the yellow card when he deserved it, I don't think he would have made it through the whole match against
Yeah.
Bahambula.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember commenting on the ref at the start of the match because I don't think he's one of the more recognizable games in the C or recognizable names in the CPL in terms of refing, but my recollection of him from previous games was he's a bit inconsistent. Like at times I feel like he maybe doesn't call stuff early and then loses control of the game a little bit and feels like he needs to clamp down, but it's sporadic. Like
Mm,
he loses and then he feels like the need to assert himself, and so it ends up being quite random. And I'm not sure it necessarily favors one team or the other over time, but you can tell players have no idea what's going to be a foul or what's not with this guy. And so like they'll get away with stuff early, they'll start to take liberties, and then all of a sudden he calls something extremely, extremely strictly. So it makes it hard for the players to, you know, at least be consistent. If you're going to let
yeah.
everything go, let everything go. If you're going to be strict, be strict. But if you're kind of veering back and forth from one to the other over the course of a game, it's not a good look.
Mm, no, that's it. And I think it's just consistency. I'd rather have someone just suck all game long, and then that nothing's going to be called or everything's going to be called,
Yeah.
whichever way they're going.
Yeah.
I'll ask you just to cast your mind into the host of the show. So you are Ant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what are you saying about the last two games?
Is it what I'm saying on the podcast or what I'm going to say over beers at the pub afterwards?
We'll go with the G-rated version.
The G-rated version. Um, yeah, I think he'd say the same, which is, I think his reaction would be similar to mine in the sense that, it wasn't a convincing win, but a win's a win kind of thing. And so it's, um, hopefully that gets us in the right mentality, gets us in the right headspace. I know Gary was kind of talking on Wanderers Grounds. He was a guest on Wanderers Grounds the other day and talking about momentum and needing to build momentum and that this could be the start of building momentum. So I think maybe he might look at it that way. Maybe he spent enough time
Yeah.
around Gary that optimism has rubbed off.
And I did see Gary the other day. It looks like he's recovered from all his major illnesses. So speedy recovery to Gary. Hopefully he's still doing well. Hasn't caught anything more tropical.
Congratulations on overcoming yellow fever, Gary.
Yes, exactly. Yellow fever. It's out for all of us. So we're adding a new touch to the Down the Pub podcast, and I don't even know, Anthony might not even let us play, like let us go on live on the internet with this podcast. So I don't know what we're going to do with this amazing content if he doesn't go for it, but we're going to do a speed round in a second. But first, could you bring us up to speed on Irish football and what may have happened that may have affected both you and our fearless leader, Ant?
Yeah, so as may have come up on previous podcast, both Anthony and I are big supporters of the League of Ireland, and we happen to support rival clubs. He's a big Shamrock Rovers supporter, and I am a Bohemian supporter. And they're rivals. Their matches are considered a Dublin Derby, and I will give some credit to Shamrock Rovers. They are top of the league right now, but the one problem they can't seem to solve this season is the Bohemians because we beat them for the third straight match this season. Nice 2-0 victory at Daly Mount Park, the home of Irish football, I guess it would have been Monday night. And
Okay.
Anthony, I think was back in the motherland, so hopefully he had some nice Guinness to drown his tears in. But his team may lead the league, but the one problem they seem to be unable to solve is the mighty mighty Bohs. So
Wow. Okay. So that's kind of like a Halifax Calgary thing they got going on there.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Minus the gigantic derby. Okay. So just for a laugh, we're going to do this speed round. And you don't need a long answer here. Just give me a few of your key thoughts. All right. So first question or first topic: Sean Reyes super sub versus Sean Reyes starter.
Starter.
Okay. Anything to back up that
I
strong opinion?
I just feel like he creates so much and asks so many questions of defenders. And we saw it, I mean, we saw it last game. I think it was his ball into the box that I think he had the assist on TMG's goal. So he asks so many questions of defenders. Um, I think he can do a lot more for you in 60 or 70 minutes than in 30. And I think that's just the reality. I think we've got other players that work well against tired defenders. And I think Vitor Diaz is one, and we hadn't seen much of him lately, and saw some nice passing ball movement from him the other night. I'd love to see him more as a super sub, but I think Ray as a starter again, it probably comes back to that kind of. I prefer the two tens behind the nine as opposed to two nines, but and so I prefer to see him out there creating rather than a second nine, but yeah. What about
Okay.
yourself?
Oh,
You
I'm
don't have
there
to
as a
answer these
starter.
questions. What?
No, it's good. I like him as a starter, but I do like how we play. I feel like we're more fluid in that. I'm just going to say 4-5-1 for whatever we're
Yeah,
calling that formation,
yeah,
and then we can start some of that long. Although I do like the concept of Tiago being the starter up top and stretching them with some of those long balls. I think that could be
agreed.
important, and then let
Yeah.
us play in behind him. So Mekadesh versus So.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I think Kareem came in and obviously Nassim was injured at the start of the season and Kareem came in and really impressed and I don't it's football can be a little unfair or a little cruel at times in the sense that I don't think he did anything that warranted being dropped, other than that Nassim is a slightly more experienced hand and maybe offers us a little more going forward. He's shown that he can do things offensively. I think he had two or three goals for us last season in the relatively short part of the season he was with us. So I think I'd probably lean towards Nassim for those reasons, but man, Sal's a very capable sort of option to rotate into that back line if and when you've got injury issues and really um considering how little playing time he's had as a professional in the last 2 to 3 years, he stepped very capably into the role at the start of the season. So yeah.
Yeah, that's all. I think the first three games he gave away a ball every game to start
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah.
But then it felt like once Mekadesh was getting close to uh, playing again, he wasn't giving away the ball at all. He looked so composed, this so back there. I'd be interested to see what that looks like. Like Wes is going to need a break at some point,
Yeah.
so I'm going to assume that the option will be to slide so out to left back, see how he does going forward, or flip it so Perlman's pushing forward more. But yeah, that I think we're in a great spot in that left sided. Well, actually everywhere in center back. But if Julian makes it back as well, we're gonna have a bevy of riches back there.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've seen very little of Jefferson Alphonse this season too, and when we have, I think he's kind of been played a little bit out of position, or not in his preferred position, which is unfortunate because he showed real promise last year as well. But like you said,
Yeah,
it's a bit of a embarrassment of riches back there. So
it might be interesting to see if any like loan opportunities come up for these guys, or anyone just needs to play more, so they go elsewhere. That's going to be interesting to see in the second half of the year here. Okay, next topic. Wanderers missing great chances, or Wanderers running into great goalkeeping.
ooh, that's a tough one. I thought Irving was excellent last game, and I think he made a couple of excellent stops on Thiago in particular, and kind of had Thiago second guessing himself a little bit to the point where I think where he had kind of his third opportunity, he may have overthought it just because of how good Callum had been on the first couple of stops. So definitely in that game, and I mean Carducci's an excellent keeper. So maybe a little combination of both, but I do
Okay.
think we faced some excellent goaltending the last two matches. What are
I'm
your
just
thoughts?
happy that I'm just happy that our shots on target are rising the last couple games.
Yeah,
So we're not getting as many shots, but they seem to be higher quality, better positions. So now it's just about the finish.
yeah.
Okay. So this is an ant question. Is this even a question? I don't know what I wrote here. Winning ugly, long may it continue. Are we happy seeing, I would say, the style of play that we've seen the last three games, or do we all like seeing what we saw the first six, 7 games of the year, regardless of some of the results?
These are tough questions for
I'm
sort of
telling you, man.
for a rapid fire round.
Sorry to make your work so late in the evening.
You're saying rapid fire and then you're asking me essay questions here, Dave. Um,
I take it back. We're going to
I could
rename this
I could
the
write
Halifax Library Rapid Questions.
yeah,
Yeah.
I could write my thesis on that. Like I don't mind winning ugly. I follow Wimbledon, who are very adept at that, particularly in the late stages of the season. That being said, like I think winning ugly is something um, you don't want to be winning ugly too early. I think is one thing I would say. I
Yeah.
think early in the season you want to be playing more expansive, attractive football, and then when you really get into kind of the short strokes of the season and you're down the stretch, and I I I mind it less there, but I find when you're grinding out wins too early in the season, as teams figure you out, grinding out wins can easily become grinding out draws or close losses. So I think there's a time and a place for winning ugly and grinding out wins, but I think that I prefer to see it down the stretch and in the playoffs as opposed to in the first third of the season.
Yeah, listen, as an Everton fan, I've seen so much of that. Well, I haven't seen a lot of winning, to be fair, but a lot of
You've
ugly
seen a lot
games.
of ugly.
A lot of ugly games. So maybe just it's better than just being ugly. Okay, Thiago dives versus staying up and trying to finish.
Stay up and try to finish.
Okay, good one. Yeah, I feel like he should just be going around these guys who are waiting for him to chip them or blah blah blah. All right, that's it for our pseudo rapid-ish, fire-ish questions brought to you by the Halifax Public Library. And then I'm going to finish on this last big questions, unless you've got anything that you want to wrap. And the big question is, how do we go about beating Forge in Calgary? And will it be better when we're playing them on the road? We haven't played Calgary on the road. Or is this just what it's going to be all year long?
Have we ever won in Calgary?
We've drawn in Calgary.
I'm not sure we've ever won there.
I don't know if we have.
So, I mean, yeah, and it's a tough place to win for a number of reasons. I think, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think they have the best home record in the league overall. Not necessarily this season, but I think over the course, over the life of the league, they have the best home record. Not just because, I mean, they're a very good team. There's some factors that work in their favor. The altitude works in their favor, and you can see this in almost any sport Calgary plays in. It is a high city, and the oxygen levels are less good there, and um, that is a factor. That is a factor that, teams have to adapt to. And so things like that work in their favor. So, um, how do we beat them? Are we more likely to beat them away? I don't know because we seem to struggle at that. Like you'd almost feel like maybe there's less pressure when we're playing them away, but results maybe suggest otherwise. We've had a tough go in Calgary, so um, yeah, I don't know. We
So it
really haven't
sounds to me
found the
like you're
answer.
saying we got to start doing some high altitude training at Wentworth. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe
Pre-match? Yeah.
the top of the
Yeah.
mountain at Wentworth is going to help us. I just don't, there's in previous season, certainly his first season, Patrice really seemed to have Bobby's number, and
Yeah.
Bobby seems to have figured us out since then. And I don't know what adaptations or changes we need to make to get that that upper hand back. They are, you know, a perennially well coached, deep, experienced team with a winning mentality and tough to play against. What are your thoughts? What's
No, I
the
thought you
what's
were
the
going to
se
answer it for me.
what's the special sauce?
I don't know if we got a special sauce. I like the one thing I will just say is like if I look at the arc of the season, I like that we are trying a bunch of different things.
Yep.
So we're trying different formations, we're trying different ways of playing. Like Lorenzo's touches have gone like it was either him 1-2 with Nimick all season this year for touches.
Yeah.
He's dropped down to fifth in the league, right? The last 3 games. So we're not going through him as much. We're not stressing him as much. Now, we could say whether that's better or worse. Not quite sure we could come to a valid conclusion on that one yet. It's just completely different. So guys are more willing to go forward. We're playing the last 3 games. We've been more willing to go forward quickly through Bahambula and Bai. And actually have them attack and get into the box. So that was something we hadn't been doing for the first few games is getting one-on-one with the defender, whipping in a ball. Now, all the balls haven't been great. Our forwards haven't got the timing of getting on the end of all these yet, but I feel like it's more dangerous. So what I feel like is we are setting up teams to show them enough different looks. Some games we've been pressing like super hard all game.
Yep.
Some games we've been dropping off. So I feel like we're putting a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to try out. We're going to see what works. And then hopefully we can get on a run the last few games of the season that will hopefully firm up, a couple of home games in the playoffs for us. But in the end, I feel it's like likely we're going to have to beat Hamilton or Cavalry on the road. I feel like we match up really well with Ottawa. We'll see when
Yep.
Didic and friends get back, but I think that's going to be interesting. But I just want to see us be able to take one of those big teams down. I think that would be a great season for us.
Yeah, and in fairness, your point about kind of different looks and different formations is a good one because that's something you often see Forge do over the first part of the season too, right? Is experiment
Mm.
with different looks and different formations, and they kind of have a tendency to lurk around sort of third or fourth in the table, um, and then by down the stretch, they've got it all figured out. They've got and they've got enough different looks that they can keep teams guessing and and that's when they really kind of turn it on. So I don't know if what we're seeing is sort of a deliberate attempt to emulate that approach in the sense of let's experiment a bit more, let's not stick with one formation, let's try different things, see what works, see what doesn't, keep teams guessing. And so it could very well be that we're kind of copying maybe that aspect of their approach. Who knows?
Hopefully we're playing the long game here, and lots of guys are getting minutes, and we'll have built a nice deep bench. And then who knows? We might. I think we still have one roster spot left. So if they identify a spot, or someone's not coming back from an injury, or we get an injury, or someone's getting transferred or loaned out, maybe we bring in a new body somewhere, and that would be interesting to see where they might look for that kind of position.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like the transfer window's approaching, and maybe I haven't been paying as much attention, but I feel like I haven't heard as much chatter this year around the league generally about potential transfers out. So maybe we'll see less of that this year overall. I mean, I think you mentioned potentially a couple of players that aren't getting the minutes that it might be worth looking at a loan or some type of other move to get them somewhere where they can get the minutes that they probably need. I guess the question would be for us, like, are there any glaring holes in our roster that we would want to fill in the midseason transfer window? Are there depth issues we want to patch over, or are we comfortable with the roster we've got and it's just a question of trying to get more out of it down over the balance of the season? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't think we've seen all the guys that we think would fill in. So Jeremy not playing, could
Yeah,
play in the midfielder or left back, could fill
yeah,
in at that left back position. You mentioned Alphonse already. None of our young guys are really getting any minutes. I would say that's not fair. Sorry. But, Camilo not getting on the field.
yeah,
Ciccarelli not getting on the field.
yeah,
So, like, we do have a bunch of bodies around that we don't really know what they can do. And I'm assuming if they haven't played yet, it's because just everything around them is so much better. And we've been pretty good with injuries.
yeah,
So they're not getting those looks, but they're also not creating that space for themselves to get the looks.
yeah.
Right. So, like, there's a lot of competition all across the field. I'd be interested to see where guys would fill in.
I do feel like an out and out fullback to maybe give us some cover in the event
Mm,
that something happens to Wes or Adam, um, heaven forbid, but like I don't you're ready to say like if Wes isn't available, then all of a sudden we're trying to squeeze Jeremy or Kareem Sow in there. If something happens to Adam, we're maybe trying to put Alphonse out there, even though I don't think that's his best role. And so, I wouldn't hate seeing an out and out fullback added to
yeah.
or wing back added to the roster, even if just for depth and cover, because I think that's the one position where I see us as being a bit a bit thin on options. But yeah,
Also, I like that we're close to 1,500 minutes under 21 played, so that's not going to be an issue for us this year. So that strategy by those guys has been excellent. So very happy to see that going forward. Thanks for joining us on a possibly, maybe, never going to see the light of day podcast. Otherwise, we'll be starting our Down at the Scotia Square Mall podcast if Anthony rejects this, and we'll meet every Tuesday for lunch and find a lunch sponsor in the Scotia Square Mall and talk about the Wanderers.
all right.